You know the Netflix show Last Chance U, the one about players battling for one last shot at the NFL? But buried in that series was one guy who didn't just get a shot, he kicked the door down. And I don't just mean he made a roster, I mean he became a first-round draft pick. So how does a player with that kind of destiny end up on a show about lost causes? To get that answer, we have to travel back to Eden Prairie, Minnesota, to a time when Jermaine Johnson was an absolute animal. My senior year, I was pretty dominant. I think I was ranked the #1 player in Minnesota. You'd figure every college in America would be beating down his door. But in reality, he had 0 scholarship offers. It wasn't about his skill. It was about a single number, a 1.9 GPA. I was lazy, plain and simple. I didn't take care of business in the classroom, and I didn't make it a priority. And Mom, I'm sorry for that. Because of that one number, the door to Division I football was slammed shut. And then one coach made a phone call. It was a junior college, and the coach was already driving hours just to see him. But in my head, I'm thinking, I'm not going to some JuCo. No way I'm doing that. In my mind at the time, that was like admitting I'd failed. But this wasn't just any JuCo coach. This was the infamous Jason Brown. To put the fear of God in these bleeps. Shut the bleep up, man! Take your bleep, you sorry bleep! Get down, you fat bleep! But his message to Jermaine was simple. Trust me. If you just put your trust in me and be who you are, you will have your pick of any school in this country. So Jermaine landed at Independence Community College in Kansas, a speck on the map with a population of barely 8,000 people. But that quiet little town was about to get a national spotlight. Netflix was on its way to film their series Last Chance U, a documentary profiling junior college players fighting for one final chance at their dream. These were players with done talent derailed by bad grades, massive egos, or disastrous choices. And Jermaine Johnson was now one of them. But the second I got there, I knew this place was just a stepping stone. This was the trampoline that was going to launch me to exactly where I was meant to be. From the very first game, Jermaine just took over the field. I remember it clearly. I had a strip sack, then I got another sack, and this was my first game. I was a little on edge. These guys were grown men. I mean, you're playing against 22-year-olds with ankle monitors on? Yeah, I was a little nervous. He was a force in the biggest moments. He wrapped up his freshman season with 8 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, and 3 forced fumbles, fueling Independence to its first conference title in 40 years. The show was a breakout hit, and Netflix immediately renewed it for a second season. But by then, Jermaine Johnson was no longer a secret. Jermaine Johnson, now ranked as the #1 overall junior college player in the entire country. There isn't another player in this country like Jermaine Johnson. There just isn't. For Netflix, this was pure gold. The #1 player in the nation was the star of their show. But if you watch that season, you hardly ever see Jermaine. And that was entirely by his own design. I purposely wasn't in it very much. I had seen how they portrayed some of the players from the previous seasons. Let's be real, it's a TV show. They're going to amplify anything, good or bad, for drama. And I refuse to let a show create the narrative of who I am. But in the world of college recruiting, he was a certified superstar, especially after a sophomore season where he was even more unstoppable. The hits were harder, the spotlight was brighter, the stakes were higher. I can't. And off the field, Jermaine was putting in the work too. He battled his GPA up to a 3.5, and suddenly the offers came pouring in. Coach Brown told me the truth. I could have gone to any university in the country I wanted. It was just as insane as you'd imagine. Mail was just piling up everywhere. The whole process was nuts. But Jermaine wanted to play against the absolute best. And one program rose above all the others. Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs have just landed a commitment from the top-rated JuCo player in the country. There's no place like it in the world. When you see that G on the helmet, you just know you want to be a dog. He went from junior college to a powerhouse program. The jump in the level of competition was massive, and he was far from the only star on that defense. Georgia's defensive line was an absolute freak show. You had Nolan Smith Jr., Trayvon Walker, Azeez Ojulari, all of them future NFL legends. Jermaine had to fight just to prove he belonged on the same field. He made incredible plays, but his time on the field was scarce. In 14 games, he got a single start and ended the year with only 2.5 sacks. It was a crushing season, far from what he'd imagined. But the following year, Jermaine came out looking for a fight. He swallowed up in the backfield Jermaine Johnson with the sack. Jermaine Johnson! He recorded a sack in 4 consecutive games. But even that wasn't enough to get him consistent snaps. The depth on Georgia's roster was just that ridiculous. Then COVID-19 hit and the season was lost. He looks back on those 2 years as the absolute lowest point of his entire career. He had NFL dreams, but with almost no game tape, his chances were evaporating. So Jermaine made the hardest call of his life. He put his name in the transfer portal. I needed to show myself what I could really do, and it was critical that I showed the NFL what I was capable of, because that is the end goal. That's my destination, and I can't get there playing 20-something snaps a game. I can't establish a rhythm. As a pass rusher, I have to set my opponent up. It was a brutal choice, because man, I loved Georgia. I picked them over everybody else. I had an amazing time there. The moment Jermaine's name hit the portal, his phone blew up. Every team wanted him. But after the very first phone call, his mind was made up. He said, "Jermaine, listen. Trust me. Come to Florida State. All I ask is that you be you, both on and off the field." The sales pitch was simple, just be yourself. But after a brutal 3-6 season, Florida State wasn't even on his radar. Yet those were the precise words he'd been waiting to hear. So Jermaine headed for Tallahassee, Florida. And this time, he refused to be just another guy in the rotation. He was there to be a leader. When a player ditches the SEC for the ACC over playing time, the narrative is that he's looking for a step down, to dominate so-called lesser competition. I was determined to prove that narrative wrong and show everyone I could hang with the absolute best of the best. And the pressure builds, and he's going down. It's the transfer, Jermaine Johnson. And Johnson gets him a second time. That's the second sack for Jermaine Johnson. He posted a career-high 2 sacks and 2.5 tackles for loss. He was finally getting 70 snaps a game, and at that point, he completely owned the ACC. A total game wrecker. Wow! And there's Jermaine Johnson storming in from the blind side. An absolute takedown, Jermaine Johnson with the sack. He had officially arrived, and his draft stock exploded. Was there a single moment when you thought, I'm going to be a top prospect in this draft? I'm a first-round pick? For me, it all clicked during the Miami game. The matchup was Miami versus Florida State, the Hurricanes taking on the Seminoles. Van Dyke drops back. The ball is out. It's on the ground. Jermaine Johnson showed the world he wasn't just some great player at Florida State. He was a guaranteed Sunday player. The ever-present Jermaine Johnson. He was simply all over the field this afternoon. He's engulfed and sacked! And who was it? You only get one guess. Jermaine Johnson. Jermaine delivered the single greatest performance of his career, finishing the day with 3 sacks in 1 game. That game was something else. He later admitted, I think I actually cried in that game, because this is exactly what I was chasing when I left Georgia. He capped off the season with 12 sacks and 18 tackles for loss, which earned him ACC Defensive Player of the Year honors. In the span of 1 year, he went from a rotational player to a guaranteed first-round pick. So, what was the secret? What changed between Georgia and FSU? He said, I was just let loose. To be perfectly honest, the biggest change in my performance from Georgia to Florida State was that they simply unleashed me. And my confidence skyrocketed because I knew being out there so much that my teammates were relying on me more than ever. He had done everything necessary to solidify his position as a first-round talent. But the doubters were still out there. One analyst declared, Jermaine Johnson does not possess what is required to make it in the National Football League at the next level. I'm giving Jermaine Johnson a 5th-round grade. He has bust written all over him, so draft night was shrouded in uncertainty. Was he a genuine top 10 talent or just a one-hit wonder? He remembers, so I'm sitting there, and pick 4 goes by. Okay, I've got this. I'm going at 10 to the Jets. I just know it. Then pick 10 comes around, Garrett Wilson. The selections continued to pour in, but Jermaine Johnson's name was never called. I am in absolute disbelief that Jermaine Johnson is still available. Jermaine Johnson is my 9th-ranked player overall. It's clear the NFL isn't nearly as high on him as, for instance, Draft Twitter is. Then finally, the Jets traded up to pick 26, and with their selection, it was Jermaine Johnson, linebacker, Florida State. Hey, y'all! Here comes JB, man! From the very beginning, JuCo, that's the one right there, I'm telling you. From last chance U to a first-round NFL draft pick. But just like his time at Georgia, He joined a defensive line that was absolutely loaded. Carl Lawson, John Franklin Myers, Bryce Huff. Now wearing number 52, he had to prove his worth all over again. He started out as a situational rusher, but that didn't keep him from making noise, because in week 4, he got his first ever NFL sack, and he is sacked the rookie, Jermaine Johnson. But in the very next game, he was hit with an ankle injury that kept him on the sidelines for 3 games. And upon his return against Buffalo, he made an immediate impact. Allen is tripped up. He could not escape Jermaine Johnson. Despite that, his role remained limited, and he closed out the year with only 2.5 sacks. It wasn't the debut season he envisioned, but to his critics, it was an outright failure. The Draft Network flat out called his upcoming year a make-or-break season, particularly after the Jets selected another edge rusher, Will McDonald, in the first round. Jermaine Johnson did not appreciate that one bit. He went back to the grind. And when he arrived for year 2, he was sporting a new number. Number 11. The exact same number he wore when he dominated at Independence, Georgia, and Florida State. And during the season opener against the Bills, it was obvious. Quarterback tries a run up the middle, and he is going absolutely nowhere. Jermaine Johnson. Jermaine was finally getting consistent playing time and had earned the starting job. And that was the only shot he needed. Wilson steps up. There's a chase from behind, and the football pops loose. Wilson's in trouble, and he goes down hard. Hey, God knew what he was doing. He made me DeVito. The pressure is coming, and he is sacked. The pocket is collapsing, and he'll be taken down. That's Jermaine Johnson. They only rushed 3 men, and Herbert is sacked nonetheless. Facing one of the best teams in football, he made 2 game-changing plays that both led to turnovers. Herbert's in trouble, a wobbly pass as he's hit, and it's intercepted. They bring the house against Hurts, the pass is deflected and intercepted by Quinnen Williams. This man was everywhere. It wasn't just about terrorizing the quarterback. His ability to stop the run was just as dominant. I mean, the guy was even blocking punts. But he saved his most incredible play for last. Play action! A little flip pass there, and it's picked off. That's Jermaine Johnson, and he is going to take it all the way to the end zone. Of every edge rusher on the Jets roster, Jermaine Johnson played the most snaps and finished the year with 7.5 sacks. It was a phenomenal breakout season, and he was rewarded for it. The kid with the 1.9 GPA, the one forced into community college in Independence, Kansas, had just made the Pro Bowl. I couldn't be more thankful for it. After walking the path God laid out for me, after everything I've endured, there isn't a single thing this world can throw my way that could ever break me. And for that, I'm profoundly grateful. I wouldn't trade a single moment of it. If this story hit you, smash that like button and make sure you subscribe. My journey's far from over, and you won't want to miss what's next. I'll catch you all in the next chapter. Stay blessed.